Love rarely arrives through perfect sentences. It appears through patterns, through actions repeated when no applause is expected, and through silent choices that reveal what the heart cannot easily confess. Many people wait for words because words seem clear and direct, yet the deepest emotions often emerge from places language cannot fully reach. A man who is truly in love does not simply tell you how he feels. He begins to reorganize his inner world around your presence. His attention changes. His behavior changes. Even his relationship with himself begins to transform. What appears ordinary on the surface often carries profound meaning underneath. Today, we will explore 4 silent ways a man reveals his love without speaking it. Each sign connects to the next, forming a deeper picture of emotional devotion that grows not through declarations, but through consistent and meaningful actions. One of the earliest and most revealing signs that a man is in love is the quality of his attention. Attention is far more than simply looking at someone or listening to what they say. It is a form of psychological investment. We naturally direct our awareness toward what matters most to us, and when a man is deeply drawn to a woman, his mind begins to hold on to details that others would quickly forget. This happens almost unconsciously. He remembers the story she told weeks ago about her childhood. He recalls the name of a friend she mentioned only once. He notices when her energy shifts, even if her smile remains unchanged. What appears insignificant to others becomes meaningful to him because it is connected to her. This kind of attention differs from curiosity or attraction. Attraction often focuses on appearances and immediate impressions. Genuine emotional attachment reaches deeper. It seeks to understand the person beneath the surface. A man who is developing profound feelings becomes interested in the hidden layers of a woman's experience. He listens not only to her words but also to the emotions behind them. He notices the moments when she becomes unusually quiet, the subjects that make her eyes brighten, and the situations that cause her confidence to fade. He begins collecting these observations without realizing he is doing so. The reason this attention is so powerful is that it reflects an inner shift. Most people move through life primarily concerned with their own needs, fears, and ambitions. Their attention naturally returns to themselves. But love creates a subtle displacement of the ego. Another person's well-being begins to occupy mental space that was once reserved for personal concerns. Without intending to, he starts wondering how her day is going. He thinks about whether she arrived home safely. He remembers an important event she mentioned and asks about it later. These actions may seem small, yet they reveal a significant emotional reality. His mind continues returning to her even when she is absent. There is also a certain patience within this kind of attention. He does not demand immediate access to every part of her personality. Instead, he remains genuinely interested as her inner world slowly reveals itself. He listens carefully because he understands, consciously or unconsciously, that every person contains hidden depths. The more he cares, the more he wants to understand those depths. Rather than forcing connection, he allows it to unfold naturally. This attention often appears in subtle moments. He notices when she changes something about herself. He remembers her preferences without needing repeated reminders. He can sense when something is bothering her, even before she explains it. These observations are not calculated strategies. They emerge because his awareness has become attuned to her existence. In many ways, attention is one of the purest forms of affection because it cannot be easily faked over time. Where the heart is invested, attention naturally follows. And when a man consistently notices what others overlook, he may be revealing feelings that words have not yet expressed. When a man's attention has moved beyond simple attraction and into genuine emotional investment, something else begins to emerge naturally from his behavior. The desire to create a sense of safety. This safety is not merely physical protection, though that may be part of it. It is emotional safety, the quiet feeling that a person can be themselves without fear of judgment, manipulation, or unnecessary uncertainty. A man who is truly in love often communicates this not through grand declarations, but through the consistency of his presence. Many people speak beautifully when emotions are high, but words alone do not create trust. Trust is built through repeated experiences. It grows when someone's actions align with their character over time. A man who deeply cares does not leave a woman constantly questioning his intentions. He does not create confusion simply to maintain control or attention. Instead, his behavior develops a certain steadiness. Even when life becomes difficult, there is a recognizable reliability in the way he shows up. His presence becomes something that can be counted on, rather than something that must be constantly analyzed. This consistency reflects a deeper psychological reality. When someone becomes important to us, we begin to care about the impact we have on their emotional world. A man in love gradually becomes more aware of how his actions affect the woman he values. He understands that every promise kept strengthens trust, and every unnecessary disappointment weakens it. Because of this awareness, he often becomes more deliberate in his choices. He does not simply think about what he wants in the moment. He begins considering how his decisions influence the connection he is trying to protect. Emotional safety also appears in the way he responds to vulnerability. Every person carries insecurities, fears, disappointments, and hidden wounds. Revealing these parts of ourselves requires courage, because there is always the possibility of rejection. A man who genuinely loves does not use vulnerability as a weapon. He does not collect personal information to gain power during future conflicts. Instead, he treats those revelations with care. When a woman shares something painful or deeply personal, he listens without immediately trying to dominate the conversation or diminish her experience. His response communicates acceptance rather than criticism. There is another subtle aspect of safety that often goes unnoticed. A man who truly cares creates emotional space. He does not feel the need to control every thought, feeling, or decision. Love that is rooted in insecurity often becomes possessive because it fears loss. Mature love understands that genuine connection cannot be forced. As a result, he respects individuality. He allows room for independence while remaining emotionally available. This balance creates an atmosphere where closeness can grow naturally instead of being demanded. Perhaps most importantly, his presence begins to calm rather than disturb. Life inevitably brings stress, uncertainty, and conflict. Yet when a man is deeply invested emotionally, being around him often feels less exhausting and more grounding. His actions communicate a simple but powerful message. You do not have to constantly defend yourself here. Over time, this feeling becomes one of the strongest indicators of love, because safety is not created by dramatic moments. It is built quietly through hundreds of small interactions that repeatedly demonstrate care, respect, patience, and genuine concern. Once emotional safety has been established, a deeper transformation begins to take place within a man who is truly in love. He no longer experiences the relationship merely as a meaningful part of his present life. Instead, the woman he loves gradually becomes woven into the way he imagines the future. This shift often happens long before he openly speaks about it. In fact, some of the strongest signs of this change appear in subtle behaviors rather than direct declarations. His actions begin to reveal that he no longer sees his life as a journey traveled entirely alone. Human beings naturally create internal images of the future. We imagine where we will live, what goals we hope to achieve, and the kind of life we want to build. Most of these images are centered around our individual desires. Yet when love deepens, another person begins to appear within those mental pictures. A man may not consciously realize how significant this change is at first. He simply starts speaking and acting as though the woman's presence in his future is becoming increasingly natural. This can be seen in the way he discusses plans. He may mention future events months away and automatically include her in the conversation. He may talk about experiences he wants to share, places he hopes to visit together, or goals he believes would be more meaningful if she were part of them. These comments often seem casual, but psychologically they reveal something important. His mind is no longer constructing a future based solely on personal fulfillment. It is beginning to accommodate partnership. What makes this sign particularly powerful is that it extends beyond words. A man can speak endlessly about the future without ever intending to follow through. Genuine emotional commitment reveals itself through choices. He begins making decisions with greater awareness of how they might affect the relationship. Opportunities, responsibilities, and long-term goals are evaluated not only according to his own interests, but also according to their potential impact on the person he cares about. This does not mean he abandons his individuality. Rather, he starts balancing personal ambition with relational commitment. There is also an emotional dimension to this process. The future is uncertain, and uncertainty naturally creates anxiety. When a man imagines someone beside him in that uncertain future, it reflects a profound level of trust. He is not merely enjoying the connection in the present moment, he is allowing himself to become emotionally invested in a possibility that extends beyond today. This requires vulnerability because every future vision carries the risk of disappointment. The willingness to take that risk often reveals the depth of his feelings. As this mindset develops, his priorities may begin to shift. Certain achievements that once seemed entirely personal start gaining new meaning because he wants to share them. Challenges become easier to face because he no longer sees himself carrying every burden alone. Success becomes more fulfilling when it can be celebrated together. Even ordinary aspects of life take on greater significance because they are imagined within a shared experience rather than an isolated one. Without making dramatic promises or constant declarations, he gradually builds evidence of his intentions through these choices and perspectives. His behavior communicates that he is no longer thinking only about where he is going. He is thinking about who he hopes will be walking beside him when he gets there. The deepest and perhaps most revealing sign that a man is truly in love appears when he begins to change his relationship with himself. While attention, emotional safety, and future planning all point toward growing attachment, genuine love eventually reaches an even deeper level. It confronts a person with parts of themselves they have long ignored. It exposes weaknesses, insecurities, fears, and habits that once remained hidden beneath the routines of daily life. When a man genuinely loves a woman, he often finds himself becoming more aware of who he is and who he could become. Most people are comfortable living within familiar patterns. Even when those patterns are unhealthy, they feel safe because they are known. A person may tolerate their own impatience, emotional distance, poor communication, or fear of vulnerability for years without seriously confronting them. Yet love has a unique way of challenging complacency. When someone becomes deeply important, their presence acts like a mirror. Through that mirror, a man begins to see aspects of himself with greater clarity. He starts noticing behaviors that could damage the connection he values. Suddenly, growth is no longer an abstract idea. It becomes something personal. This transformation rarely happens because he is trying to impress her. Efforts motivated solely by approval are usually temporary. They fade when praise disappears. The changes inspired by genuine love come from a deeper place. He begins improving because he recognizes that becoming a better version of himself benefits not only the relationship, but also his own sense of integrity. The woman he loves becomes a catalyst for growth, rather than merely an audience observing it. One sign of this process is increased self-reflection. He becomes more willing to question his own reactions instead of automatically defending them. When conflicts arise, he does not always assume that the other person is at fault. Instead, he examines his own contribution to the problem. This level of introspection requires humility, and humility is often one of the strongest indicators of emotional maturity. A man who genuinely cares about the relationship values understanding more than being right. Love can also inspire courage. Every person carries fears: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of emotional exposure. Many men spend years protecting themselves from these fears through emotional walls and carefully maintain distance. Yet when love becomes powerful enough, those defenses begin to feel less important than the connection itself. He may start expressing emotions he previously kept hidden. He may become more open about his uncertainties and hopes. In doing so, he accepts the vulnerability that real intimacy requires. Another important aspect of transformation is responsibility. A man in love often becomes more conscious of the example he sets through his actions. He becomes more disciplined, more reliable, and more intentional, because he understands that his choices affect someone he deeply values. This does not mean he becomes perfect. No one does. Rather, it means he becomes willing to work on himself instead of using his flaws as excuses. Over time, this willingness to grow becomes one of the clearest expressions of love. It demonstrates that the relationship has touched something profound within him. The woman he loves has not merely occupied his thoughts or emotions. She has inspired movement within his character. Through her presence, he becomes increasingly committed to evolving into the person he is capable of becoming, and that silent transformation often speaks more loudly than any declaration of love ever could. Love is rarely revealed through words alone. It is shown through attention, through the safety of consistent presence, through the quiet inclusion of someone in future plans, and through the willingness to grow into a better version of oneself. When these signs appear together, They often reveal a depth of feeling that no spoken confession can fully capture. Sometimes the strongest declaration of love is not heard. It is lived. Thank you for spending these moments with me. I hope this exploration has helped you see that genuine love often speaks through actions long before it speaks through words. If you found value in these insights, take them with you and observe not only what people say, but how they consistently show up in your life. Until next time, take care of yourself, trust your intuition, and remember that the deepest connections are often revealed in the quietest ways. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.